Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate it. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure that you hit that follow button and rate it 5 stars. If you want to, you can also share this with a friend of yours. If you want to find me on socials, you can find me on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok at Kyle Vaught. That's Kylev as in Victor ATT. And on Instagram and Threads, you can find me at Kyle_Vaught. And as we wrap up 2023 and gear up for 2024, I figured we should probably talk about some of the things to get prepared, right? And I think that today is a perfect time to talk about things to say yes to. So this episode is jam-packed full of adventure as well as difficult and new things. Let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Okay, so in today's episode, I want to talk to you about saying yes, because over the last, I would say, a couple months, my whole life has revolved around saying yes. Yes to opportunities, yes to certain things, yes. Even today, you can't see it now, but I actually was just soaked like to the core because I was invited out. The Ravens played. I just moved to Baltimore. I was invited by the team of people I work with to go and hang out before the game and then after the game. They had tickets to the game. I didn't, so I just kind of hung out during the game. But it was kind of like overcast weather, and I ended up, I didn't bring an umbrella. And we walked from the game to a place to get some food and drinks, and it was about a mile long, and it was pouring rain, so we were all soaked. Like, all of us were just soaked to the core. And it was this crazy adventure. But now I look back and I'm like, this is so exciting. My first week of living in Baltimore, and I get this like really epic story that we get to be a part of. And then I get to tell. And I think that there is something to be said about living a life that is a story worth being told. I think so many people, they live life very conservatively, whether they not like political wise, but just personally, right? They don't necessarily go out. They don't necessarily say yes to adventure. They don't necessarily do certain things. They stick to themselves, whether it's because of anxiety or, and I understand there's social anxiety and things like that. But I have found it so unique in the fact that I have like trained myself to say yes to certain things. And as we gear up for 2024 to start, I really thought we should start having some conversations about maybe some areas of your life that would challenge you to think about something new. Maybe think about something different. Maybe think about a different viewpoint that in 2024, it could really encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, or maybe even find yourself in a better comfort zone that will allow you to reach your most productive self, your best self, maybe your happiest self that you've never experienced before yet. So I broke down into 3 different things that I think that you should say yes to. And the first thing is, I think that you should say yes to something adventurous. I think that when you say yes to something adventurous, you take ownership of your story. And so many of people that I've met, and including myself, we allow other people to determine our story. So whether or not we are we're on the edge of our seat waiting for them to tell us to do something, or maybe we're very people pleasing. So we want to make sure that whatever we do pleases the people who are closest to us. So maybe family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's a spouse or a girlfriend or a loved one. We want to please them. So we are hesitant on doing something that would maybe be really exciting for us, but we just want to make sure that it fits their mold as well, that it's comfortable for them as well, instead of being able to take ownership and say, no, this is my life and this is something that's going to be really good. And I think that when we stop letting people dictate what we can or cannot do, we are able to elevate ourselves to do things that I think a lot of people think that we shouldn't do or that we can't do. But when we actually do them, it unlocks this potential where we're able to say, no, if I can do that, then I can do X, Y, and Z even above that. And it's super exciting. The main things that I look at is it moral? So is it something that is morally okay? Can you grow from it? And will you be helping others? And if those three questions are answered as yes, it is moral, it's good, it's something that will benefit others, I can grow from this experience and learn from it. Maybe I'll make connections, and maybe there's going to be new people that I'm going to learn from. That's going to be really cool. Will you be able to help others? I think everything in life, the more you revolve your life around servanthood and being able to serve others and bring value into their lives by serving them and providing something, not asking for anything in return, just simply providing them. I think you benefit everybody around you, and you cultivate this land almost like a farmer watering a crop, right? You know that the crop isn't going to give you anything until you water it, until you bring value to it, until you nurture it and care for it. Because if you don't, then whatever, locusts are going to come, animals are going to come eat it, it's going to completely just ruin it. So I think there's something beautiful about saying yes to doing adventurous things and taking ownership and saying, yes, I want to go hiking. Yes, I want to go camping. Yes, I want to go to the city. Yes, I want to visit Greece. Yes, I want to visit out of the country. Whatever it might be, there's plenty of visions or escapes or adventures that you probably have imagined. One of my favorite things is when people say, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And one of my first things is I can go anywhere in the world. Like in today's world, with enough money, enough technology, enough communications, you can plan it and you can go to pretty much anywhere in the world that you would want to go. So if you want to go to Bali, go to Bali. If you want to go on a cruise, save up, go on a cruise. If you want to go to Thailand, you can go to Thailand. Like there's so many places that you can visit if you just put your mind to it. And when people ask, if you could go anywhere, where would you go? Okay, the question should be, how long would it take for you to save up to go wherever you would want to go? So if you say, yeah, I really want to see the Great Wall of China. Well, how much is a trip? I don't know. Okay, look it up. Put it into tangible practices to where you can say, okay, I know it's going to be $2,500, which means in order for me to go on this life-changing trip or this really exciting trip, I'm going to need to put away $100 a paycheck for X amount of time. All right. Once you get in the mode of that, you're able to say yes to adventures a lot more because you can plan for them. And it's super exciting because then you have all these epic stories that you have said yes to that you're going to say, well, I met so-and-so on a train in Dubai and it was crazy. And, they were telling me about the States and visiting and all this stuff. And I think that a lot of people get locked in their own story, or they get locked in a story that other people are saying like, no, you are not the main character in your story. You are the side person in your story and I'm the main character. Or like you have friends that probably do that and they project that on you, but it's just not true. And what I've learned in my life, if you want your story to change, then you really must take ownership of your story. Right? You have to take ownership of writing the story of the way you want it to go. And usually this means that you have to make small changes here and there, maybe the little things that are going to turn into the big things. And usually what I find is the longer it takes, the more value it has because there's an anticipation. So change your story one step at a time. Don't try to change it one chapter at a time. Change it one sentence at a time. And I really believe that as you get closer and closer and closer to changing the little things on that, your story is going to start enveloping into this beautiful, exciting adventure that is a life worth being told. Now, number two, I think that it's important that we say yes to something difficult. Because the reality of life is that it's not fair. And everybody that wants it to be fair, it's just never going to be. Never has been, never will be fair. You're always going to experience some type of pain, some type of heartache, some type of just unwarranted, just unfortunate event. Like it's just going to happen. Like illnesses happen, people get sick, weather happens that's completely unable to be determined whether or not weather is going to do something. There was a tornado in Tennessee earlier this week. I think it was like yesterday or the day before. And I just saw videos. Like nobody can plan for that. Like that's wild. In December of all times. It's just wild. And what I've really kind of developed is this ability to say yes to difficult things, because difficult things really help. Difficult things allow you to say, okay, I know that this is going to be really hard and it scares me a little bit, but that's a good thing because it's going to keep me growing and it's going to keep me with the understanding that not everything is always going to be this easy, right? We can easily become complacent. And the other side of it is I don't want to make choices in life because I'm afraid, right? I think that everybody, they'll look at something difficult and they'll be like, I'm afraid to fail. No, you're afraid of what people will say about you or think about you when you fail. Because a lot of people will fail all the time, right? They'll do something, whether it's falling in their apartment or slipping on something on a rug or whatever and busting their butt, and then they just kind of laugh at it, but nobody saw it. So it's not like you really failed, right? Nobody saw it. So nobody knows. But I think a lot of people, they think, this is going to be so difficult. And then what's going to happen if I don't achieve it? Other people are going to look at me and say, wow, they tried that and they failed. But the reality is a lot of people don't think about you like that. And anybody that actually does think about you like that, however small amount that may be, they don't even care. Like, they don't matter. They're not your close friends. Your close friends are going to be cheering you on no matter what. And you could fail 1,000 times. And most likely your best friends are still going to say, hey, you did your best. Like, let's go. Like, try it again. Try something new. You've got this. And I think that it's really important to determine what is difficult in your life and why you're doing it, right? You don't want to make a choice based on, I'm afraid to fail. I want to make choices based on the fact that I'm wise, not because I'm scared, right? I'm not afraid to feel pain, but I'm not going to just walk into a bad situation, right? Like, if it's a burning building and there's nobody to save, there's no reason to run into that burning building. But if there's somebody to save, then you run into that burning building. That's just a crude example, of course. But you want to make choices not because you're afraid, but you want to make choices because you're wise and say, oh, no, this person has gone through this before. I'm not going to experience what they did. I don't have to go through it because they already did it for me. And the more choices you make like that, you'll be able to avoid the really terrible events, and you'll avoid some of the pain without having to do it. But you'll still go through difficult things, and there will still be pain here and there, but you're going to deal with it a lot more. And you can't hide from it. You can't protect yourself from the pain in this life, because eventually all of us are going to experience something that will bring us pain. And I mentioned before, heartache or a loss of a loved one, illness, etc. And the sooner that we learn to deal with it, the stronger and better we are actually going to be because of it, because we are able to process the fact that life is not fair. And being able to say yes to something difficult, that's actually going to help us in the long run. And the more difficult things that you do, the more confidence you have in knowing that, yes, I can handle this difficult thing because I've done X, Y, and Z. And those were difficult things. And if I can do that, then this is going to be something that I can handle. And I hear it from people who go through like cancer and things like that all the time, where they'll talk about how I know I can make it because I know somebody else who had this cancer, or I know somebody else who made it, or I heard this story of this person who had it way worse than me, right? We always hear it could be worse, but usually the people who are going through it, they're the ones that have the most joy because they're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it. And nobody ever asked to be like ill or anything like that. But the more difficult things that you do, the better mindset you're going to have when that difficult thing comes along in your life. So maybe it is a loved one that's fallen ill, or maybe it is a unforeseen, event that occurs, a tornado or a hurricane or something. Now, these are all things that are going to impact you in incredible ways. And if you have a mental practice where you are doing those difficult things, it's going to benefit you. So as you go through 2024, maybe you start pinpointing, is this too easy for me to do? Maybe I should do something a little bit harder to get better at it and be more prepared by the end of 2024 so that I am stronger than I was in 2023. that just may be something that you have to do. And the last thing that I think we should talk about is saying yes to something new. Because the reality is you don't know what you don't know, right? And I've watched a bunch of podcasts. I've listened to a bunch of podcasts. I've been a podcast listener for over 13 years, since 2010, when I learned about podcasts. 2009, I learned about podcasts, and I've been listening to podcasts so 23, 24 years now. And one of the beautiful things about podcasts is I've learned from so many people. So that whether it's been spiritual people, whether it's been successful people, whether it's been business people, maybe it's been athletes, maybe it's been, people who are just extremely smart, doctors. It's really unique because podcasts give you the ability to learn so much without having to experience it, because it's condensed. It's condensed knowledge. And one of the common denominators for all successful people and all people who are extremely intelligent, they are all willing to meet new people and learn new skills. And the reality is that you should never let a lack of knowledge keep you from being a part of a conversation, because every expert loves a receptive ear. This doesn't mean that you contribute to every conversation. I know a lot of people, and I used to be this person who I needed to talk in every conversation. I needed to get my word in. I needed to sound smart. I needed to be cool. But the reality is in some conversations, you hear people and you're like, whoa, that's way over my head. Let me just listen for a little bit. Maybe I can ask a really good question, because I'm going to be dumb about it. I'm going to say, okay, can you explain this a little bit better? Or can you revisit this? You just said this, and I really like that, but I don't understand it. Expert people who know knowledge usually love talking about things like that. So you learn so much more. So say yes to new things. So maybe it is a new opportunity with your career. Maybe it's a new opportunity with a diet or an exercise that you've never done, or a new trainer, or maybe it's a new opportunity with a girl. Maybe you've been single for a long time like myself. Like, be mentally prepared, because if you don't say yes to those new things, what you do is you actually will close off doors unbeknownst to you. So you will have this cultivating lens that you'll create around yourself, and you will close doors subconsciously, and you'll say, I like where I'm at right now, and I don't need anything new. But that in and of itself is saying, I don't need to learn anything new. I know it all already. And that's just not accurate. That's never accurate. None of us ever know all of it. We can always learn new things and be humble and experience those new and exciting things. So those three things I think are so important in walking through into 2024. It's say yes to something adventurous, say yes to something difficult, and say yes to something new. Because at the end of the day, the more times you learn to say yes on those type of things, you will say no to the things that don't benefit you. And you're going to learn the difference between what benefits you and what benefits others versus what doesn't benefit you and doesn't benefit others. And the more you say yes to those things that benefit others, the more value you're going to walk into those relationships with, the more value you're going to walk into the career with, and the better you are going to be overall. That's going to do it for this conversation. If you would like to follow me on my socials, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok at Kyle Vaught. That's KYLEV as in Victor ATT. If you want to find me on Instagram, where I post most of my stuff, as on Instagram, that's at Kyle_Vaught. I would also throw Threads along with that. It's the same as Instagram because it's connected. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button and share this podcast with somebody that you care about in getting ready for 2024. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I really appreciate it. Make sure that you follow, hit that 5-star review. That would be really cool. And share this podcast, because I think that that's the best way to get the word about and to challenge each other and encourage each other. That's all I want to do with this podcast. For everybody, I hope you have a wonderful week. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.